Donald's creative feast. In the heart of a serene village, surrounded by rolling hills and quiet fields, lived a man named Donald. Donald was well known throughout the village not just for his wisdom, but also for his creativity. He wasn't a wealthy man, nor did he hold any prestigious titles, but people came to him from all corners of the village for advice. Whether it was how to fix a broken cart or how to build a better fence, Donald had a knack for solving problems, always with a unique twist that no one else would have thought of. But despite his reputation, Donald had one lingering issue: his abandoned house. The house had once been filled with the laughter of his children, the warmth of family dinners, and the comfort of shared memories. But as the years passed, his children moved away, and his wife passed on. Donald stayed behind, keeping the house as a place to rest, but as time wore on, he found himself feeling more like a caretaker of a memory than a resident. The house, which had once been the heart of his family, was now quiet and empty. It had fallen into disrepair, its roof leaked, the paint had chipped, and weeds had grown wildly in the garden. For a while, Donald thought about selling the house. It seemed like the practical thing to do. But deep down, he couldn't bring himself to part with it. The house was more than just a building, it was a part of who he was. It held memories of his life with his family, and the thought of abandoning it felt wrong. But at the same time, he couldn't bear to live in a place that felt so empty. One warm afternoon, while sitting on a bench in the village square, Donald overheard a conversation between two villagers. They were talking about the lack of good places to eat in the village. There were a few humble inns, but none offered anything more than basic fare. And as for atmosphere, the village had none of those trendy, scenic spots that seemed to be sprouting up in the larger towns. Donald couldn't help but listen in, a thoughtful look crossing his face. "I've always wondered," one villager said, "why we don't have somewhere with a view, a place where you can enjoy a meal with the beauty of the valley spread out before you. I mean, we're surrounded by these beautiful hills, but there's nowhere you can really go to sit and enjoy them." The other villager nodded in agreement. "You're right. A place like that could be a real draw for the village. I bet people would come from far and wide just for the experience." Donald's mind began to race as the idea took root. He stood up abruptly, excusing himself from the conversation. The words of the villagers echoed in his ears. A place with a view. A restaurant with a view. His gaze shifted toward his old house, sitting atop the hill at the edge of the village. The roof. The roof of his abandoned house, he realized, was perfectly positioned to offer an unparalleled view of the valley. For the first time in a long while, Donald felt a spark of excitement. The idea of turning his old, abandoned house into something new, something that could bring joy to others, seemed like the perfect solution. It would give his house a new purpose and provide a place where people could come together, share good food, and appreciate the beauty of the valley. The very next day, Donald began working on his plan. He had no grand experience in running a restaurant, but he had a lifetime of creativity and a love for cooking. Donald's meals were legendary in the village, not because they were fancy, but because they were simple, wholesome, and made with ingredients from his own garden. His neighbors often dropped by for a taste, and they never left without a smile and a full belly. Donald's plan was simple: transform the roof of his abandoned house into a rooftop restaurant with a small kitchen below. He would serve fresh, unique dishes using local ingredients, focusing on the flavors of the valley and the seasons. He imagined long wooden tables, flowers in pots, and lanterns hanging from the beams, creating an atmosphere of warmth and charm. The first step was repairing the roof. Donald spent several days fixing the leaks, replacing broken tiles, and ensuring that the structure was safe. He worked by himself, using the tools he had in his shed. It wasn't easy, but Donald had always been resourceful. As he worked, he began to visualize what the space would look like, a place where villagers and travelers alike could come to enjoy a meal while taking in the sweeping view of the valley below. Once the roof was ready, Donald turned his attention to the kitchen. It was small, but that didn't matter. He didn't need a grand space, he just needed the essentials. He built a small counter, a cooking station, and a place to store the ingredients he would use. His garden would supply most of what he needed, and he planned to buy the rest from local farmers. But it wasn't just the structure that needed work. Donald knew he had to offer something different, something that would make his rooftop restaurant stand out. So, he decided to create a menu that was as unique as the location itself. He would serve dishes that celebrated the flavors of the valley, ingredients that were local, seasonal, and fresh. One of his first creations was a dish he called Valley Green Soup. It was made with a mix of wild herbs and leafy greens from the hillsides, blended into a light, fragrant soup. Another dish was golden corn cakes, made from corn grown in the village, topped with a dollop of fresh cream and a sprinkle of wildflowers. He also planned to serve valley venison stew, slow-cooked with root vegetables and seasoned with local spices, served with crusty bread. But Donald didn't stop there. He wanted to create something truly special, something that no one had ever tasted before. So, he began experimenting with wild ingredients, things like wild mushrooms, edible flowers, and honey from the beehives in the forest. Slowly, his menu began to take shape. After weeks of preparation, the day finally arrived for the grand opening of Donald's rooftop restaurant. The villagers gathered outside his house, curious and excited to see what he had created. Word had spread quickly about the new venture, and many were eager to try the unique dishes that Donald had promised. Donald stood at the bottom of the stairs that led to the rooftop, a little nervous but excited. He greeted each guest as they arrived, offering them a warm smile and guiding them to their seats. The tables were set with simple, hand-carved wooden dishes, each one adorned with fresh flowers from his garden. The soft glow of lanterns cast a warm, inviting light over the entire space. As the first few guests settled in, Donald made his way to the kitchen below, where he began preparing the first course, Valley Green Soup. The smell of fresh herbs filled the air as he stirred the pot, adding a few final touches before serving. The soup was simple but fragrant, a perfect introduction to the meal. When he served it to the guests, their faces lit up with delight. "This is incredible," one of the guests exclaimed. "I've never tasted anything like this before." Donald smiled, pleased but not surprised. The Valley Green Soup was a hit. The guests continued to enjoy their meals, savoring each bite and chatting happily among themselves. As the evening wore on, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden light over the valley. The view from the rooftop was breathtaking. Everything from the fields to the distant mountains seemed to come alive in the fading light. As the night continued, Donald served dish after dish, each one a celebration of the valley's bounty. The golden corn cakes were a crowd favorite, and the valley venison stew received rave reviews. But it was the wild honey and mushroom dessert, served with a dollop of cream and a sprinkle of edible flowers, that left everyone talking. As the last guests left that night, Donald stood on the rooftop, taking in the view. The evening had been a success beyond his wildest expectations. People had come from near and far, and they had left with full bellies and happy hearts. His rooftop restaurant had become not just a place to eat, but a place to connect with others, to celebrate the beauty of the valley, and to enjoy the simple pleasures of good food and good company. Word about Donald's restaurant spread quickly, and soon, people from neighboring villages were making the journey to his home, eager to experience the unique dishes and the breathtaking view. Donald's house, once abandoned and forlorn, had become a gathering place, a hub of creativity and community. With each new day, Donald felt more fulfilled. His house had found a new purpose, and so had he. He was no longer just a man living alone in an empty house. He was a chef, a host, and a creator. And with every meal he served, he knew that he had found the perfect way to honor his past, while creating something beautiful for the future. In the end, Donald's rooftop restaurant became more than just a place to eat. It became a symbol of creativity, resilience, and the power of new beginnings. And as the seasons changed, Donald continued to dream up new dishes, all while sharing the beauty of his valley with the world.